Ian, are we online? Thank you so much. So firstly, Councillor Scullion is covering for Councillor Tim Swift. Thank you so much. And unfortunately, Susan Hinchcliffe, not Imran, can be here today. And also Councillor Waller needs to leave earlier. So if there's any movement, thank you for coming and making the effort anyway to come for a short time. So thank you so much. Before we get to the substantive meeting, I just want to make some opening remarks. It's really great to be here with you all. Our last meeting, as you know, was cancelled because of the sad passing of Queen Elizabeth II, meaning we haven't met formally since July. And so much has happened since then, hasn't it? We've had a new Prime Minister who has subsequently resigned yesterday, 3 chancellors, the emergency market interventions, multiple economic statements, government U-turn after government U-turn, and the consequences of all of this have been dire. Soaring inflation, mid-year cuts to budgets, mortgage rate rises, and limits on borrowing. This has all contributed to a worsening cost of living crisis, which we know, all of us, that it's hurting people and communities across West Yorkshire. Now, the Prime Minister, the ex-Prime Minister, was selected on a promise to grow our economy, but we know that her decisions have had the exact opposite effect, worsening our economic situation in the name of improving it. And we needed to hear this week a plan from government to save our economy, protect our households and rescue our public services, but we just got yet more mayhem. Now, I know how hard it has been for our local authority partners who face some incredibly difficult decisions over the next few months. And as Mayor, I stand shoulder to shoulder with all 5 leaders and will do everything in my power to support them. Everybody knows around this table, everyone in our partnership understands that our region needs to grow. We need growth to provide new jobs and opportunities across our region, to invest in our public services and improve our well-being, to improve our buses, our trains, and our vision for mass transit. In this region, we know all too well trickle-down economics doesn't work, and that's why we want to drive forward a new model, a different model of growth, one that is just, inclusive, and sustainable, because growth needs to benefit households on the lowest incomes as well as those on the highest. It needs to benefit places that haven't had opportunities for decades, help our net zero ambitions. And everything on the agenda today is about that. We will be working in partnership to invest in people, in places, and support for businesses. And that's why today we're seeking approval to create a Mayor's Cost of Living Emergency Fund, which will work with local authorities to support families in need across our region. It's why we're doubling our investment in retrofitting social housing, making homes warmer and reducing bills. Why we're bringing forward investment in a new business sustainability programme, offering vouchers to help businesses green their processes. And why we're approving a new West Yorkshire employment support programme delivered through our local authorities. And it's why I was in India at the end of last month, building trade relationships, attracting investment and cementing 1,000 new jobs for our region. We are doing all we can. We do need government to play its part. So that's what we'll be discussing today, our West Yorkshire Plan for Growth, a plan that invests in people, places, our public services, and of course our partnership, that's just, inclusive and sustainable. So without further ado, we'll get on with the business of the meeting. And if I could just mention that there is an amendment that was a late appendix, that if we want to discuss that, then we'll move the SPF item to the end of the agenda and we can discuss that in private. We can obviously discuss the substantive item of SPF, but if you'd like to speak to that appendix, please do let me know now, and I can then rejig the agenda and we can put it at the end. Is there anybody that would like to specifically speak to that appendix? Yes, okay, so let's move SPF to the end of the agenda and we can discuss it then in private. So moving on, so declarations of pecuniary interest. Thank you, Councillor Scullion.
Thank you. On page 24, agenda item number 9, the West Yorkshire Flooding Innovation Programme. I'm a sponsor of that programme.
Thank you, Councillor Scullion. Councillor Robinson.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, the item 8, the digital update. In my capacity working for Tech UK, I've been involved with discussions about digital strategies, so it's worth flagging at this stage that I'm aware of the report before it came to the board.
That's very welcome knowledge. Thank you so much. We've covered item 3, exclusion of press and public, which will now happen, and we will be inviting members of the public, thank you so much for coming today, to leave when we get to that item. So item 4, minutes of the last meeting. It feels like a lifetime ago, July the 22nd. Has anybody any comments or questions? Are we happy to confirm they're an accurate record? We are. Thank you so much. Okie doke. So these items are now for decision. So moving on to item 5, the economic report and crisis in the cost of living and doing business. The first report considers the cost of living crisis that I've focused on in my opening remarks, and an overview of the local economic situation, and outlines what we intend to do as a mayoral combined authority in partnership with our local authorities to support communities. It also summarises our ask of the government in response to the crisis. So I've mentioned several of the interventions: the Mayor's Cost of Living Emergency Fund, the Business Sustainability Programme, and the Mayor's Fares to help make public transport more affordable. So Alan, if I could hand over to you, please, to provide further details.
Thank you very much, Mayor. So this paper was published last week, of course, with the papers, and a significant amount has changed since then. But if I could just give a bit of a summary overall. So we're still seeing inflation at around 10%. New figures came out yesterday on that, driven largely year on year through the cost of energy being a significant proportion of that, cost of food going up, and so on. There's also increased interest rates, as we're all aware. We're continuing to gather evidence as to how this is affecting West Yorkshire specifically, and there are some differences in terms of how it's affecting people in West Yorkshire as compared to the national average. This is largely driven by the fact that we have more people in West Yorkshire who are living in deprivation and poverty than the national average, and those people are the people who are most hard hit by the current economic situation. And the second issue, particularly regarding energy, is that we have a larger proportion of dwellings that have poor energy efficiency, and some of the interventions that we're going to come on to talk about later help address those matters. The second thing is clearly there have been revisions to the energy price cap, the energy price guarantee, and the equivalent scheme for businesses. Our data is still showing that around 1 in 5 households will have no disposable income left after they've paid for essential goods and services this winter, and that as a subset of that, roughly 1 in 10 households won't actually be able to afford their essential services. In terms of support for businesses, we know that the government has put in place a 6-month energy support, but with a review after 3 months. So, and this clearly is subject to any announcement that may take place on the 31st of October, which we're still expecting. So we are discussing the position with business representative groups to establish how we should, what recommendations we should be making to government about how they put in place support for businesses afterwards, particularly given the number of energy-intensive businesses and the significant proportion of manufacturing businesses that we have within West Yorkshire. So we'll be planning on submitting to government some evidence on that. In terms of what we can do locally, we set out in the previous report for the meeting that was cancelled the day after Queen Elizabeth passed away, the huge amount of work that is happening within local authorities to support people and businesses. There are, however, some further support. There is some further support that we can put forward at a regional level, which are coming before the combined authority for recommendation today. This paper here is not actually formally seeking approval. It's flagging that there's approval later on in the agenda. But the three key things to draw attention to are the Mayor's cost of living fund, which the Mayor mentioned at the beginning, which is particularly working with local authorities and the voluntary and community sector to support people with food, warmth and mental health. Secondly, a programme to support businesses with their energy efficiency. So this is a grant scheme to help businesses become more energy efficient, particularly focused on SMEs over the next few months. And the third thing is the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, which helps to improve the energy efficiency within social housing. The final point that the paper talks about is the Combined Authority's ask of government, which has probably shifted a little bit since the paper was published. But I would broadly speaking, they're similar areas. So support for households and local services. So an uplift to universal credit to protect the most vulnerable. Secondly, ensuring that there is a positive funding settlement for local government that recognises the essential role that councils play, both in providing the foundations necessary for economic growth and frontline service delivery. The second area is around support for businesses, which I've mentioned already, and we propose to submit to government recommendations about how that support should be provided. The third is to engage with the government's work around the net zero target. I think the specifics of that will need to be determined after the fiscal event next Monday. The fourth is around the adult education budget and the rate at which those courses are funded, which has not been rising. Important to continue to invest in those skills programs. So they're broadly the areas which it's proposed that the Combined Authority writes to government about. There is one which is not mentioned in the paper due to and this is due to the time at which it was published. But since the paper was published, we have a new Chancellor of the Exchequer who has made some public statements about various cuts, and we think that we should be adding to this list assurances around various commitments that the government has previously made to us, particularly in the transport space. So commitments such as mass transit for West Yorkshire, the City Region Sustainable Transport Settlement, and funding for buses. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much, and I'm sure everybody's read this paper very carefully because it makes for incredibly grim reading, and it is our responsibility to do everything we can to support the people of West Yorkshire, but also to make the case to the government they cannot cut our public services, and the benefits should rise in line with inflation because the poorest cannot take the greatest hit. So I'd like to open this up for a debate if people would like to comment. Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, thanks, mate. Just want to give a local authority perspective on the situation because quite rightly Alan did talk about local authorities. Austerity, when we went through austerity 12 years ago, it had a massive impact on all local authorities. For example, our local authority has lost £200 million year on year in real terms. And if we are going to be talking about going through austerity, which I'm hoping we don't, you've got to get that into context that we are half the size as we used to be. So public services is really important, especially as we go through the next year or more. At the same time, we need to make sure that we put people at the heart of everything we do. In terms of the cuts. There was a PFA article that 6 local authorities are on the verge of being bankrupt. And that's in all shapes, all sizes, and all different persuasions, all different parties. And that is a real fear because one of the things that central government keeps on saying, and again, it doesn't matter which colour they are, that you can use your reserves. And reserves are there really as a last measure. And when you spend your reserves, you can only spend it once. So maybe this year we might be okay because already local authorities are actually overspending on their budgets for prices and inflation in terms of contracts, energy and everything else. And if they spend their reserve this year, then there'll be no reserve or very little reserve left next year. So it's really, really critical that whatever we do support our households, we do support our businesses, but at the same time we need to make sure that we support local government along with mayoral combined authorities, because there's no magic solution that local authorities can actually produce, and if we don't put public services, local authorities at the heart of what we're doing along with the mayoral combined authorities, we will suffer, and we need to grow the economy from the bottom up, and that starts at local communities. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you for those really useful comments. If you'd like to turn your mic off, thank you. Councillor Mark Roberts.
Thank you, Mayor. And I just wanted to add to the paper in my role from the left, because I've spoken to an awful lot of local companies and private sector members in the LEP and also business representative groups. And there were just a few points I just wanted to add to the sort of paper that sort of paints that depressing but clear picture. I think firstly, there's some very different implications by sector. And we mustn't try to approach this with a broad brush. Hospitality is very different to construction, to manufacturing, and I think therefore the implications across our different geographies can be very different because of the clusters of where businesses are based. And I want to make sure we continue to pick that up. In conversations, I think it's afraid to say, there are some early indicators of decreasing demand. So some of the chamber groups were saying in particular, if you look at construction, some of the early indicators, the sales of surveys and tools to mark out sites are often early indicators. They are seeing significant decreases in demand there, which is an early sign of what's potentially likely to come. I think also access to finance for businesses is one that we need to keep a very close eye on. That there are a lot of businesses saying that access to capital or loans have become a lot harder even in the last few weeks, and I think we need to use our networks to stress to our partners in banking and other places that we need to keep businesses going. I wanted to highlight we've done a very useful Leeds City Region business survey, which has got some great information of businesses across the region and is available for anyone who they wish to have it. 69% of businesses expect to pass price increases on. So the implication there is businesses are going to fuel further the inflationary pressures we're seeing. And then finally, on energy-intensive businesses, the paper talks about energy-intensive businesses. I think the point I would make is those businesses also have supply chains. So whilst the energy-intensive businesses themselves might be relatively few and still significant, but the supply chains of those businesses are really important. And I think for any involvement into the National Review of the Energy Business Price Scheme, we need to think about the full supply chain. So I just wanted to raise those points. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. That was incredible intelligence from the sector, and very worrying that the marking out is the canary in the coal mine, that is an early indicator, and something we'll definitely be watching. And access to finance, I'm hoping the Accelerator Fund, the 22 million, that we can then say to business, this is for you to borrow, and then hopefully it then circulates back into West Yorkshire. So hopefully these initiatives will help, but it does seem very troubling. And if people have less money in their pocket, they're less likely to go out and spend on hospitality, for example. So that is worrying. Thank you. Any further comments? Okay, we're happy to move on and just approve the recommendations. Thank you. So we're skipping the next item. We're moving it to the end of the agenda. So this is the bus service improvement plan update. And we were very pleased September the 4th to launch the Mayor's Fares, reducing the M-Card day ticket from £5.50 to £4.50 and capping the maximum fare for single journeys at £2 to help residents with the cost of living crisis. And you won't be surprised, we need to monitor those numbers to prove that it works and it gets more people on the bus. Just apophically, it does feel people are telling me that the buses they normally use are busier, so I'm hoping that's an indication of a rise in passengers. However, there is real challenges in the bus network in that having worked really hard with other mayors to persuade government to extend the bus recovery grant on the understanding with operators that if we did this, that they then wouldn't slash routes, unfortunately, it's really frustrating that some operators have pressed ahead with the service reductions. Now, Councillor Hinchcliffe, who can't be here, who is the chair of the Transport Committee, and I have had many robust conversations. And in fact, Councillor Lewis and I were just talking to Arriva before this meeting, seeking to address these issues that bus users are facing. But it is a challenging picture, and I've really encouraged the bus operators to hold their nerve until we can get to our investment from the bus service improvement plan money from government, which I must say hasn't yet to be confirmed from government. We don't know when that's going to happen given the chaos. We need to make sure that we have the routes still in place so that we can build our transformational network. But if I could hand over, please, to Dave Pearson for a further intel.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Mayor. As the Mayor said, the Mayor's Fairs initiative came into being the beginning of September. We're looking very closely at the results of that in terms of looking to see if patronage is going up, and the early indications is that it is, and so we're comparing what we've seen in September with what we saw earlier in the year, and there's a definite growth. We're looking particularly at the adults who are travelling on the bus service, and because they're the group that actually benefits from that. So we're tracking that fairly closely, and we're seeing a good level of growth in September compared with earlier in the year. So that's a sort of positive, and we will bring back the more definitive figures to you when we have them. But I think it's fair to say the single digit, but it's looking very positive in terms of what that's bringing. I think this report really sort of sets out the bus service improvement plan. We've already started engaging work with the Transport Committee in terms of developing what the bus network should look like in the future, so that we can deploy the bus service improvement plan funding to get us in as a first step towards that. And so we're doing quite a lot of work in preparation for, in anticipation of the bus service improvement plan funding coming through. In terms of what we know, we have a letter confirming that the funding will be available when the enhanced partnership is a scheme that is the sort of contractual relationship between the combined authority, the bus operators and the councils to deliver the bus service improvement plan. We're in the later stages of the statutory process for that. No objections or issues coming forward in that. So as soon as we can make that scheme formally in a legal sense, then and confirm that to the Department for Transport, we're told that the funding will come through. But whether or not that's subject to other things, we're not sure. But we haven't had any indication it is at this stage. And I think finally, as the Mayor's pointed out, there's quite a lot of economic stress within the bus service generally at the moment. I think the report sets that out, and happy to answer questions. The recommendation is for the Combined Authority meeting to delegate the Transport Committee to manage and oversee the bus service improvement plan.
Thank you, Dave. And the challenges are there, and we're not blind to those. And as the chair of the M10, the 10 mayors in England, I've been meeting with other mayors, and I was just in the west of England yesterday, and the challenge for recruitment of drivers is very real for them as well. So I'm not undermining the challenge, but I hope that our bus companies share our optimism for the opportunity to enhance and expand this bus network. Would anybody like to make any comments? Councillor Pandor, then Councillor Jeffrey.
Thank you, Mayor. The Mayor's Fairs was a really great initiative in terms of moving forward. And on the back of the pandemic, the bus companies were supported quite rightly by government grant, the bus recovery grant, or whatever it's called. And that money was put aside so that bus companies operate and actually provide the services to our residents. And I think that was really great news. But last couple of meetings in my council chamber, both September and October, the number of members from across all parties that asked questions around how the bus services are not operating and our services are being slashed was astonishing, and I was really, really gobsmacked. I don't really use buses that much, but my kids do and my friends do, and all the councillors in the council chamber do. And I've never known anything like it. You know, the way the bus services, who have been given millions of pounds of public sector taxpayers' money, are not cooperating. And in my neck of the woods, Kirklees, we have a Arriva. I can't believe that they're just sort of like, you know, making excuse after excuse after excuse into not providing the service. Now, I don't know the ins and outs of why that is, but I think what we need to do is we need to actually have a Arriva or any other bus operator who is not performing under the enhanced partnerships, because it's not partnership, it's basically, you know, a catastrophe, what I'm seeing, to come here and talk to us and for us to understand and go into a dialogue, because the argument isn't about us versus Arriva. The argument is about what is the issues, are there any fundamental issues that we need to sort out, and then together we actually openly and publicly get our act together and maybe, right, yeah, go and talk to government, because otherwise we're going to be just ending up in a situation where we're going to be actually having a spat locally, where really government intervention is needed, and if that means regulating or changing legislation or changing the law, then we must do that. It's not just about money, it's about making sure that we put people first. And it's like austerity was bad, then the pandemic, and then the cost of living crisis, and on top of that, people don't know where they're going. But they can't go from A to B. So this has to be something that we have to act on. And I hope Arriva listen to this, come and talk to us, and maybe we can actually go and lobby government together. It doesn't matter which government it is, because it could be a different government, but we need to get this sorted out. Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Madam Mayor, sorry.
Mr. Mayor will do. Thank you. And also, just to reassure you that we have invited all the bus companies to come in for a group meeting under the Enhanced Partnership about what the future looks like. But of course, this model isn't working, so it is about government being creative and looking towards the future, where we want more people out of their cars on public transport, but we can't be the ones trying to square that circle. Government have to work with us, and government have created part of this problem. So Councillor Jeffrey, then Councillor Poulsen.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. The same as Kirklees, really. We have Arriva, and your initiative for the £2 fare was amazing. But what's happened in my district, particularly in rural areas in the southeast, in Havercroft and Rye Hill, instead of capping them, fares that were £1.30, they upped them all to £2, which was quite disgraceful. When you think about people in the rural areas of the district trying to get into Wakefield for jobs, trying to get to college, and the fact that they took the opportunity, instead of using the £2 cap, they upped all the £1.30 fares, the £1, and it's just disgraceful. And then they've cut most of the services in our rural areas, and you know, we've got students going to Wakefield College, they can't get home. The buses have been stopped. Arriva have been quite disgraceful in our area. And I know you're doing all you can with your officers to get them around the table. But the way that they're performing at the moment, I feel really angry on behalf of my residents.
Thank you. And can I just say it was very, very unhelpful that their annual price rise of bus fares was the same day of the same week that we slashed fares. So the public were very confused whether then the cheapest fares were being put up in order to subsidise the lowering of the £2 fare. So it was not helpful. I did raise it, but I do agree with you that at a time when we want to be connecting communities, actually we are abandoning people and actually limiting opportunities, and also loneliness is deepening because people can't get out and about. So I do understand where Wakefield particularly has seen challenges. Councillor Poulsen. Apologies, Councillor Robinson.
Don't worry, gender's all over the place today, I think. Yeah. I hear what Councillor Jeffrey said and hear what Councillor Pandos said and echo a lot of that. As a councillor who represents a rural area, you have little option if the bus misses and you are stuck. Only yesterday, one of my colleagues in another ward, knowing I was coming to this meeting, wanted me to mention a story that happened to them. They were going past a bus stop. They saw a gentleman there stopped. He was an 83-year-old man who'd been stood waiting an hour in the cold and the rain. You know how bad the weather was yesterday, waiting for his bus to arrive. It hadn't arrived, and he was going for his COVID jab. And he would have missed his appointment and missed his COVID jab that was there. Now, in one sense, the mayor's fares wouldn't have applied to him. He would have had a free bus pass anyway. He would have been coming to his appointment. The challenge is the reliability. Actually, what we've found is that many residents say, look, we get that some of the buses are going to have to change some of the times. We get that it might not be as convenient as it was. We'd like it to be even better. But it's that reliability. If you can't rely on the bus to come, then your whole plan, your whole day, your provisions for getting to a doctor's appointment, getting to work, getting to school. We've had kids who've gone to after-school clubs, not been able to get home. Parents have had to come pick them up. They've had to find other options. In the long term, this is not sustainable to keep running. I hope the enhanced partnership will get delivered as quickly as possible, but I also hope that the bus companies, who I'm assuming are listening on the live stream and watching this as well, absolutely hope so, are aware that it is across the entire of West Yorkshire. We accept it across the whole country as well. There are challenges in public transport. We want to work with you, but you've got to work with us too on helping deliver this, because at the moment this situation can't carry on.
If I can just agree with you, Councillor Robinson, and we are doing everything we can. We've supported a recruitment drive for 1,000 new drivers. We're funding training programmes for new drivers, electric buses. We are doing everything we can, to support the changes, but it is not tenable that older people are waiting for an hour, 2 hours in the rain. It's wrong, and it's not the West Yorkshire I want to see. So Councillor Holsworth, then Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. I wanted to reiterate that we have had a bus route cut in my constituency, which is rural, that now means that residents of Stainland cannot get to West Vale, where the doctor and the dentist are, if they don't have a car or if they can't afford a taxi. And we have written to First, and they have not responded at all. And the second point I'd like to pick up, Mr Pearson made the point about there was a rise in bus usage. I work in Leeds, and I would agree with him, but the problem is that the rise is so sharp that commuting from the station to the university, buses at peak times are so full, the driver won't let anybody else on. So you wait, and then the next bus is so full, again, they won't let anybody on. So people arriving late at work and coming back to the other point, the electronic system that tells you that a bus is due is inaccurate. It says 28 Beeston due, and then suddenly it vanishes. And the next one is due in 4 minutes somewhere else. And I think this electronic system needs working and sorting out, because it's highly confusing to be expecting a bus in 4 minutes and then it vanishes. And in Leeds, they're called ghost buses. And I just think that the system for indicating when a bus is due needs to be looked at closely. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And certainly your point about taxis, when families are in a cost of living crisis, having to get taxis because there are no buses, taxis to the doctors, it's wrong. We need a bus network. I'll come to you, Dave, to wrap up, but Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, Mayor. As you mentioned, we met Arriva this morning to talk about some of the issues in my own council ward, where they are the only provider of public transport. And I have to say, my experience of partnership so far is that the service is worse under a partnership than it was before. And I know certainly, Chair, when I was doing the transport job, it was a favoured option of many governments, but I think at the moment our experience is so poor of it, we'll be looking for the other options that are available. But obviously that doesn't solve the problems that we need to address now with people not being able to travel on the buses. And I'm pleased to see some of the contents of this paper, hopefully trying to take that forward. And obviously, again, it's frustrating. You know, we as district councils, as a combined authority, and with government funding, have all invested significantly in bus lanes, bus priority schemes to try and support the bus companies by having quicker and more reliable journeys, and at the moment it doesn't feel people are getting the full benefit of that significant investment that we've put in, and clearly we support taking next steps to try and improve the services, and if it's the partnership model doesn't work, then we need to look at what alternatives will.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. And Dave, do you want to just comment on anything you've heard?
Yes, and just to pick up on the general theme of what quite a few members have said, notwithstanding the sort of funding and the structural issues around that the paper sets out and we've discussed, there is currently the bus service is performing very poorly, and I think everybody involved in it is accepting that is the case, and one of the things that we are arranging with Councillor Hinchcliffe is that the Transport Committee in November, mid-November, we will focus on the punctuality reliability issues particularly, and invite the bus companies in to discuss those particular points as well, in terms of the causes and the solutions, in terms of the just delivering what they're supposed to deliver aspect, notwithstanding the issues around cutting services, but just get that sort of reliability and public confidence. Councillor Holdsworth raises an issue which we're very alive to as well, and has been raised in other meetings around the real-time information system, which I think is broadly technically robust, but clearly not giving good answers at the moment. And reasons for that is probably manifold, and set up a working group with bus operators to actually delve into that, because the reason why buses may be in the system and they're not appearing is that has that bus been taken out of service in the last hour? And if it has, then the system needs to record that and be telling the customer. Ideally, it shouldn't happen, but if it does that, we need a robust way of doing that. So we need to look at the operational aspects of that system, as well as some of the technical aspects of that system, to make sure it is actually giving people the right information. So quite a lot of work we're trying to do around bus performance and bringing the bus operators in to be accountable for that particular issue of the piece, which is slightly separate to what we've set out in terms of bus service improvement plan, but is a really important aspect of trying to use a partnership to actually deliver better services.
Thank you, and it is helpful to be the voice of the passenger, to be somebody that uses the buses, because I can say this bus didn't arrive, whilst first or whoever would say, no, it was scheduled to arrive. I'm at the bus stop, it hasn't arrived. So it's always useful, and I would encourage colleagues around the table to please do use the buses, so you get, and I'm looking at Councillor Pandor, so that you get a real live experience of the misery we're all suffering. Councillor Robinson, you wanted to come in.
Thanks, May. It was just a follow-up to something David said. I'm live to the fact that we've got a digital update next, but I can go on my phone now and I can track every flight via an app going across the world. I can see every flight that's going across the world. Presumably there must be a way that the residents of West Yorkshire can see the buses where they are and understand why it fails. I think people will accept that, the bus breaks down. Yes, it shouldn't be happening daily. That should not be an excuse. But there should be a way that they go, okay, right, that's going to happen. But the bus getting halfway to my stop, not turning up, and exactly as the Mayor says, first going, or Arriva or whoever going, well, it's on schedule. Well, it's bloody not there. I'm stood at the bus stop. I can see that it's not there. So presumably there must be a better way of sharing information with people.
Yes, and we are we're putting all of that together so that we can have all the buses tracked on on the apps, Google, Move It, all those things that people use. We actually do have the basis of the data. We do some work around data feeds to enable that. Some bus operators actually do that already. It's not. It says it's not a sort of major technological advancement. It's just a case of us actually merging all of those operators' data feeds into the system. But we do need to address, I think, as I said to Councillor Holdsworth's point, we do need to make sure that those bus operators are managing that system properly, so that those buses are are appearing on the system in the first place. And so there's quite a lot of work to do around that, but ultimately that's the, appreciate not everybody uses mobile phones, but if somebody at a bus stop can go on their mobile phone, see that the bus is 5 minutes away, even if it's late, gives them much more confidence than not really knowing if it's going to come at all.
Thank you. I did find the QR code at the bus stop quite useful, that when is the next bus. That was quite a good initiative. But the enhanced partnership is about drawing all the operators together to deliver a cohesive offer for West Yorkshire. So thank you. Without any further comments, are we all happy to note the bus service improvement plan and that future approvals will be delegated to the Transport Committee? Thank you so much. Lovely. Moving on to the next item is the digital update, and this has been presented by Councillor Lewis as Chair of the Employment and Skills Board, with Liz Hunter providing further details. Councillor Lewis.
Thank you, ma'am. Just find the right page. Okay, just really pleased to introduce the digital update to the meeting. It's I could speak for half an hour and probably not do justice to the amount of work that's gone into developing the work that's set out in the paper. But there's two things I really want to flag up. First of all is the digital skills plans, which we've done a lot of work on through the Employment and Skills Committee, and really getting the benefits of the devolution, Mayor, and the combined authority in being able to bring everybody together and look about how we can apply our devolved funding locally to a challenge we know exists, which is filling vacancies in digital jobs in the region and supporting people into work and into better paid skilled jobs where that's appropriate using our resources. So that's the first part. Then the second part is the digital plan for the region and working with the DCMS on the local digital skills partnership, which we are bringing forward with Mark and his colleagues on the LEP as well, to make sure we've actually got the plans in place, that we're able to work, the work we do directly, the work we do as councils, and the work that employers do are working together. We know tech is a really successful part of the West Yorkshire economy, both in terms of businesses that are businesses that are directly focused on the sector and businesses that work exclusively in the sector, and businesses who are really adopting tech to really grow the work and change the way they work. So that's the two things I wanted to cover, Mayor.
Thank you so much, and this is certainly important for equality, diversity and inclusion as well, that we've got above average internet infrastructure, and yet we have far too many people who can't even turn on a device, send an email, CC in a colleague. It's really important that those furthest away from those skills get the opportunity, but also that we can intervene where businesses need support to become more digitised or to support the workforce to get more skills. And I think what the work that the skills team are doing is really impressive, and I am pleased with, it's not just yourself, Councillor Lewis, but all of those private members as well of the committee who bring their knowledge of business today to help us guide us in our thinking about what skills are needed. Liz, did you want to comment further?
Thank you. I'll be brief, but just to echo the thanks that you've said there about many people having been involved and inputted into this. It's a really important area, so it's really great to see such level of engagement. And secondly, I just want to highlight that the team have been working really hard on trying to get West Yorkshire level data, because some, as you might have seen in here, we're reporting Yorkshire and Humber where we've got it, and then West Yorkshire again where we've got it. And I think if you look at the West Yorkshire data, it demonstrates that we're, I don't want to say it kind of better than Yorkshire and Humber, but effectively the West Yorkshire data is not as paints a kind of better picture about where we are, particularly for things like digitally engaged, where we are kind of equivalent to Greater Manchester, but better than West Midlands. I'm not saying that that's the benchmark. We definitely want to probably be more where London is, and London is always in ahead of that. So I just want to really highlight that where we've got some West Yorkshire data, there's a better picture. There's obviously more we want to do, and hence why we've got the plan. And to also highlight, as I think you've mentioned, Mayor, that West Yorkshire is the fastest growing area for the digital sector, and that's something really to celebrate and to be able to promote and attract further businesses to come. So we hope that the plan will help all of our residents and and businesses, but also make sure that we're already on the map for this sector. So thank you, and happy to take questions.
Thank you. And what businesses do seem interested in is the fact that in this sector we have one of the highest retention rates as well. So people aren't having to keep recruiting, that people are supported and stay in their role longer. So it does save businesses more money if they come to West Yorkshire. They have the workforce that is loyal. So there's my advert for West Yorkshire. Would anybody like to comment on this? Thank you, Mark.
Thank you, Mayor. And from a private sector position, I just really wanted to endorse those comments and also some of the conversations that we had at the LEP board, as there was very positive support for the work of the Employment and Skills Committee, the involvement of the private sector members across businesses, and what the team at West Yorkshire are doing. So if you haven't had a chance to read the more detailed local skills plan in the appendix, there's some really great data on there in West Yorkshire as well. I think we also had a conversation about extending the reach of the local digital skills plan to more of a digital plan and a framework that covers, people, which is the skills part, but also place, which is some of the infrastructure that we were talking about earlier, as how we can sort of build our place, and then business, and building on the fact that we are the fastest growing digital sector outside London. How can we really accelerate that? So really strong support. So thank you very much.
Thank you. And Councillor Robinson.
It'd be remiss of me not to, wouldn't it? So I think firstly there's going to be a bit of a shout out for the team who did the West Yorkshire Innovation Festival and Leeds Digital Festival, both hugely successful with a great reach. Leeds Digital Festival continues to grow. West Yorkshire Innovation Festival is first year, and great to see engaging with those big topics and championing tech for the region. With regard to the report, I'm pleased to see inclusion is mentioned in there. I think we quite often talk about digital skills in quite an abstract way, but trying to improve those digital skills, as the Mayor had said before, for those people who maybe don't know how to open an email, don't use the internet in a way that sees them being able to access better public services, improve their job prospects as well, is really important. It's a really tough target to reach. I know from speaking with others, and 75% that's in there is ambitious. I'm not saying we shouldn't be ambitious, but we also probably need to be thinking about, what extra provision we need to be putting in, the extra funding that needs to come through, other grant sources, what else we can ask DCMS and government for in enabling us to deliver that, because I think it cuts across other priorities for the region. Future.now also did a piece of work on digital skills for those in work, and particularly at a difficult economic time. And it speaks to Mark's point earlier about finance and investment being available to people. Often companies are looking to see how they can retrain and repurpose staff, what they can do to make sure that they can retain them but do other things and work on other projects, and that is a retraining job. However, many within different organisations, large and small, don't necessarily have those digital skills, so it's something that we need to be championing. I think we forget them. They're in work, they're okay, they've got good digital skills. Actually, quite often they don't. They've got very basic digital skills and they do struggle. And there's probably a role that councils could play in that, with our own employees through the combined authority in different councils, about how we improve digital skills for people. And then thirdly, there's that element of digital adoption here. And I think it speaks to the first paper about how we can make sure SMEs and others are adopting new technology to improve their business prospects, improve their resilience, increase their markets and who they're aiming to go to. At the moment, it does very much focus on skills, the paper. I think that's absolutely right. It's got a laser focus on that, and that should be the focus. But to Mark's point, well, what comes next? What's the added bit? And that what comes next may be, driverless vehicles technology that's been piloted in the region. It might be things that's about new apps and working with, whether it's Platform at the station or Nexus at the university, or others like University of Huddersfield doing a great set of work on this. So how can we partner up with others to look at what that next generation technology? So I welcome the report. I think it's a great start and a great step in the right direction. There's probably now the next bit that needs to come through, particularly in light of the economic circumstances as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. And can I just echo your thanks for the West Yorkshire Innovation Week. I thought it was really successful. I want to work closer with Innovate UK And I think there's more we can do there. And also, just as councillors, if you could share the Mayor's Innovation Prize, which is 16 to 26-year-olds, a solution to the climate emergency. It's a £10,000 prize that hopefully we're going to share out between maybe 5 or 6 winners. So please do reach out to all your colleges, etc., to maybe engage them and to bring their brilliant ideas to us oldies and try and solve the future for us. Thank you. Any further comments? No, thank you so much for that. Really welcome. And we can confirm and approve the digital skills plan and the recommendations. Thank you all so very much. Moving on to project approvals. This is the details of schemes recommended for progression through the assurance process. And can I invite Melanie Corcoran, Director of Delivery, to outline the 9 schemes for consideration, and others around the table will come in for the items that are relevant to them. So over to you, Melanie. Thank you.
Thank you, Mayor. So we talked about the cost of living crisis in some of the earlier papers, and there's a number of schemes that you'll see here where we are trying to tackle that with some immediate interventions. So the first one of those is West Yorkshire Mayor's Cost of Living Emergency Fund. So the proposal here is that we fund £3 million through the Gain Share Fund, working with our local authority partners so that they can work through their voluntary community and social enterprise sectors to help those households that are most in need. So we're particularly focusing on workless households, but also those that are already experiencing in-work poverty as well. So if we can get the basics right, then people are more likely to be able to turn up for work and to gain employment. So this is about putting some of the basic foundations in place. It's offering things like debt management, money management, debt counselling, and you know, the opportunity for people to get some help in terms of fuel bills and food bills as well. So the proposal is that we approve £3 million through Gain Share, working through our local authorities and their local networks to support these households.
Thank you. Has anybody any comments on that? For me, it was really important that those who were accessing food also had an opportunity to be supported with their mental health, because you might not always be open about your poor mental health, but if you are going to a food bank, that there will be people there potentially who can support you or ask the right questions. Councillor Jeffrey, then Councillor Pandor.
Yes, thank you. The paper that's come today that Melanie's brought forward came from the place board that I chair, and all the committee were so keen and enthusiastic that we should move this forward under your guidance on the funding, and I think it's really important that we support this today. It came from business and from local councils that this is something that we should do.
Thank you, Councillor Jeffrey. Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a quick comment that I welcome the £3 million that is setting aside to address the cost of living crisis. But we need to understand that this is not going to have a big impact. We're also doing similar things in Kirklees, and I'm sure the four local authorities are as well. This needs a bigger solution. It needs a national solution in terms of what's happening. Because every little bit we do will help. But we as mayoral combined authorities or as local authorities will only be able to do whatever we can, because we've got other pressures that we have to take account of. So I just want to put that caveat in. This is not going to solve the problems. And again, the decarbonisation element, again, £17 million, really welcome. But to retrofit every single council house, and not just the council homes, but also the stock, housing stock that's within the private sector, the unoccupied sector, to actually retrofit that, to actually make sure that we actually address not just the climate issues, but also energy efficiency, to make sure that people's fuel bills are lowered, will take millions, if not billions. So again, welcome the initiative, step in the right direction. If government does decide to allocate more money to this, I'm sure the Mayoral Combined Authority will step up along with local authorities. But we will do whatever we can. But I don't want people listening to think that we're going to solve the problem. We would like to, but we don't have the resources. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you. And we heard from the new Chancellor, didn't we, that the support for energy bills is now only till next April. So there's going to be another unfortunate cliff edge. And also government could help by increasing benefits. The poorest in our society are going to be the ones that we are scooping up. So we can act as a team working with government to help them support the most vulnerable in our society. Any further comments? We're happy to approve the 3 million. Thank you all so much. And back to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Mayor. So the second scheme is the Social Housing Decarbonisation Fund, the Booster Scheme. So we already have a scheme running that is funded by government, and the criteria that has been set for that is actually fairly strict. And we've noticed that there are some properties that once the work is completed, they haven't quite got to the level that they need to trigger the funding. So there's an obvious gap here because we're still making the homes more energy efficient for homeowners. We're still reducing fuel bills, but then we can't necessarily claim the grant back from government. So the proposal here is that we expand the scheme that we already have to make sure we capture some of those interventions that might not meet the national criteria. So there's an opportunity here to increase the budget for the programme by using gain share, and the request is just over 5 million. It's 5,195,949 to expand the programme, benefit more households, and work through registered providers to identify the homes that to be part of this booster scheme and this larger scheme.
Thank you, because I was worried that the tight criteria meant that we couldn't act. And we need to, as to Councillor Pandor's point, we need to get on with this. We can't sit on our hands for much longer. We have drafty homes and an energy crisis. We must act. Would anybody like to comment? Happy to approve. Thank you so much. Back to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Mayor. So the third project is the West Yorkshire Climate and Environment Plan, Wave 1. So we are still developing the programme and the individual programmes that sit within this plan. And I know that the Climate Committee have had a number of discussions about the priorities. There are 7 actions that we're currently developing, and that's around better homes. So it is looking at retrofits for households, better neighbourhoods, business sustainability, also communications, engagement, marketing, making sure people are aware of the best course of action for them to take to reduce costs for themselves. Also flooding and drainage, green skills, and solar PV and battery storage. So they are the 7 areas that we are prioritising now and currently developing the programme. But we've got 3 areas at the moment where we are requesting that we draw down funding to get us to the next stage. So in particular, we talked about support to households. There's an opportunity here to look at support to businesses. So we are seeking approval for the Energy Price Crisis Emergency Business Grants Programme. That's a bit of a mouthful. But basically it's part of the business sustainability package so that businesses can get some support with their rising energy bills, which at the moment is a bit of a gap, and that's not something that we've been able to do. So that would be great if we could launch that scheme. In addition, we would like to develop the flood feasibility work for the flood management programme, and it is subject to final approval by the UK SPF Local Partnership Board, but we'd like to approve the release of that funding as well. And we'd like to approve the release of further funding to keep developing these programmes further and to define the individual projects that would sit beneath them. So the proposal here is that we recommend funding of 2.9 million at 17,893. Note that the final approval of the 310,000 for UK SPF is subject to that local investment plan meeting, and that the total value of the works, 40 million. This is drawing down the first element of that so that we can continue to do that work.
Thank you so much, and I'm particularly pleased to see the solar panel work. I know that in Leeds they've got a great programme of solar panels on schools, and we want to roll that out more widely across West Yorkshire. Any comments on this? Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just a quick comment. Firstly, I welcome the paper again, right direction. But one of the things that's coming out from government very recently is they want to decarbonise and improve energy efficiency regarding homes. And the focus is also on business to actually get all these measures in place, which are huge capital investments. But what really concerns me is we've had 12 years of government, and suddenly on the back of the cost of living crisis, they're asking firms and households to put in these measures with a view that that will be the answer to the cost of living crisis and energy inflation. And it shows that, actually, this is what we're doing in the right direction, but from a national point of view, it's too little too late. And if they really mean business, they need to have a longer term strategy, a longer term action plan, fully costed, approved by the Office of Budget Responsibility. Because at the moment, it feels like there's a lot of change going on nationally, and things are trickling down. And I feel that, the plans need to be more longer term, more visionary, and more inspirational, because it really worries me, right? Yeah, that my residents, I'm sure other leaders have the same issues, are in a situation where things are looking like they're going to get worse. And again, I was with Mark earlier on in the week, the chair of the LEP, and we were visiting local firms, and they're doing some really inspirational stuff. But we need real help from national government to support mayoral combined authorities that can then support local authorities to actually make the big changes we need. That won't be solved in 1-2 years' time. It needs at least a 10-year plan so that we can actually start making the big changes that we need to. Thanks, Mayor.
Thank you, and I hope that everyone around the table will agree that we are not necessarily having to wait for government. We're going to get on, we're going to do what we can, because we see this as an area of growth for skills, jobs, opportunities, regeneration, etc. So thank you for those comments. Are we happy to approve? Yeah, thank you. And back to you, Melanie.
Thank you, Mayor. So the next item is UKSPF Local Authority Hyper Local Programme. Would you like to defer this to the exempt discussion and consider this with the other item as well?
I think what might be useful is if we discuss the substantive item in public, then go to the appendix at the end, because I think this could potentially be of interest to the public. Bearing in mind this was the European funding that we know is less than we had before, but if we can just keep clear of the appendix and then we can discuss it more openly. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So yes, the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is the successor to the ESIF programme, and this particular proposal that's come forward here is looking at the investment pillars for community and place. So it's working with our local authority partners to deliver those local interventions. And the proposal here is that there is £30 million that's allocated to this work, and there's management costs that would go alongside that will also be allocated to local authority partners as well, which will take it up to 31.2 million. So obviously the detail of what's being provided, it will be in the next discussion, but in principle we're hoping to work with our local authority partners to deliver local interventions on the ground.
Thank you. And of course this includes Multiply, doesn't it, which is a government scheme that we are then going to be managing across our patch. Councillor Pandor.
Yeah, thanks, Mayor. Just to aid in process, the exempt item we've had, and I'm sure we've all read it and we've all seen it. So based on that, I would be happy to actually make a decision on this, because the exempt item is exempt. We've already seen it, the members have already received it. So just trying to aid the process, Madam Mayor.
Thank you. So taking Councillor Pandor's point that we've seen the item, Does that make sense to everybody that we approve it and then discuss it in more detail? Or would we like to keep the approval till the end of the meeting? Can I just take a show of hands? Who would like to keep the approvals till the end of the meeting? Okay, all righty, thank you. But thank you for that welcome, helpful suggestion. So moving on then, Melanie.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. The next one is the West Yorkshire Innovation Programme, and already there's been some discussion about the West Yorkshire Innovation Festival as well. So the proposal is that this is a 3-year programme to provide support to SMEs around innovation, and the support will be given through innovation vouchers, so they can then access advice in different areas. We'll also look at providing strategic grants, holding challenge competitions, supporting new products to the market, processes, services, that sort of thing, engage and support businesses, and support businesses to access financial support for the first time, and help businesses to cooperate with external innovation providers. So the proposal is it's a 3-year programme. It's funded through Investment Priority 1, through Gainshare, Good Jobs and Resilient Businesses. The total scheme cost is 6.9 million. The total amount that's been sought through Gainshare is 5,550,376, and the proposal is that we release that funding now and move into delivery on this programme.
Thank you, Melanie. And we know we will only grow through innovation. And to the points that have been made before about how we position ourselves in this crisis, we have to grow our way out of it and have those great ideas. And to Councillor Robinson's point, we have some brilliant researchers, brilliant businesses, and bringing those together can find those new ideas that can really make us more resilient going forward. Are we all happy to approve? Thank you very much, Melanie.
Thank you, Mayor. The next one, Business West Yorkshire, is also a scheme to support SMEs. So this is supporting businesses to grow, and it's looking at improved productivity and increasing resilience of our West Yorkshire businesses. So again, it's a 3-year programme. The scheme total costs are 5.2 million, and the Gainshare ask, again through Investment Priority 1, is for 4.5 million, 73,426 to be released to set up this programme and to support SMEs with growth.
Happy to approve? Thank you. Moving on.
And thank you, Mayor. The next one, Employment Support West Yorkshire, is our skills programme. So there's an opportunity here to support over 7,700 people of all ages to help them to either get closer to or to enter or to return to the labour market, or to gain new skills to allow them to get a better job within the labour market currently. So there's a wide variety of outputs that we would be trying to achieve with this one. That's quite a significant number of skills and learners that will benefit from that. So the proposal here is that the total scheme cost is just over 12 million. 12 million is the ask of Gainshare funding, and this is through Investment Priority 2, which is skills and training for people. And this is a proposal that has been brought forward, having had discussions with that committee.
Thank you, Melanie. It's so needed. Are we happy to approve? Thank you. Moving on.
Okay, so the next one is the TCF-funded Huddersfield bus station. So there's been a lot of work done at this outline business case stage. The costs have increased from the original allocation from the TCF, but we have undertaken a number of value engineering exercises to try to bring those costs down. It's much needed in terms of enhancing the interior of the bus station, but also the exterior. We are trying to increase patronage in public transport, and we need to make sure that we have good facilities for public transport so that people are attracted to use the buses. There's also an exterior canopy, which means that there's a dry waiting area for people, and also we want to integrate a bike hub so that people can cycle to the bus station and there is somewhere safe and secure for their cycles. So we are trying to improve the environment for bus patronage and bus travellers, making it safer, lighter, and you know, a good opportunity for people to start using the bus if they haven't yet done so. So the proposal here is that we release 2,178,470 to continue the development work and to get to a full business case position. Total scheme costs are 19.9, which is allocated through TCF. Sorry, there's 1 million contribution from Kirklees Council. It's 18.995380 from TCF. And the recommendation is that we approve the outline business case and move to full business case.
Thank you, and it does look great if you haven't seen the drawings. Happy to approve? Councillor Robinson.
Apologies, thanks, Mayor. Just a quick question. Yes, I have seen the plans, like the living roof that's there and the green roof on there. Obviously, you've mentioned, Melanie, that the costs are going up. At what stage does that start to go too high here? Because we know that inflation measures are in place, and when there has to be a conversation with others about what can and can't be delivered as part of the scheme.
We have been value engineering the costs at this stage. Because of the current position with inflation and rising costs, we expect that there will be an increase by the time we get to going on site. We will look again at value engineering and we will make the case for the scheme at that time. But this has been subject to a review in terms of the inflation review. We've looked at all schemes and there's an opportunity to bring this forward. And at the moment, it's in a position where it's cost effective. We will continue to review that as we go through the development process.
Thank you. Happy to approve? Lovely. Moving on, Melanie.
Thank you. And the final proposal today is a change request on the Brownfield Housing Fund programme. So we already had an initial allocation of 66.7 million. Government announced in February that we would receive a further 22.2 million approval. The targets that are expected to be delivered have now been confirmed. So we'd like to formally expand the programme with an increased allocation of funding and higher outputs to deliver. I guess one of the things that I would flag at this stage is that the criteria for spending the funding is exactly the same as the first round. So starts on site need to happen before March 25. So it's really challenging. But we are trying to maximise the benefits that we can get for our local community. So we will be driving the programme forward in its extended form, but we will continue to press government for some relaxation of the criteria that they have set for this programme. It is very tight and we do have to meet individual floor targets for benefit cost ratio of 1. And in some places where land costs are really low, it's really difficult to achieve that in West Yorkshire. So we will continue to push for a little bit more flexibility, but at this stage we'd just like to approve the increase in the funding for the programme and the targets that we would need to meet.
Thank you, Melanie, and can I thank your team for really working hard on this and for the commitment to affordable and sustainable homes. Thank you. Councillor Jeffrey, Councillor Paulson, Councillor Scullion.
Yes, following on from you, I just want to thank Melanie and the team. We did set you a task at the committee to get these things off the starting blocks and get them moving. And you've really worked your socks off to get this done. So my thanks to all the team for what they've done. You really delivered what the committee asked you to do.
Thank you. Councillor Paulson.
Yes, thank you, Mayor, and thank you for the report here. Of course, the extra funding is very welcome, and I'm sure lots of us as ward councillors are constantly battling developers who want to develop on Greenbelt. I know I have one next week to attend for exactly that purpose. Do we need to go out and call for more sites to be looked at for this extra funding, or do we have a pipeline that will actually fit into the criteria already? Just what your procedures will be going forward with the extra funding. Thanks.
Okay, yeah, thank you. We did, when we heard that we'd got this additional funding in February, we did a call for projects, a public call for projects. So we have a number of projects. We've got a pipeline as well. We've identified 4 waves of schemes, and certainly waves 1 and 2 should deliver in the time frame. But in order to meet the targets, we will have to work with some of the schemes where at the moment they're not due to deliver in the right time frame, and we're going to have to try to accelerate some of those schemes. So we're not planning to do another call, but we do have some schemes on a pipeline that we can work through. We are also getting some direct requests as well from developers, and our partner councils are directing potential schemes to us as well. So we will accept any that come through if they can justify that they have a market gap and they can deliver in the time frame. We would love to have those conversations. So yes, if it's brownfield land, as you say, not greenfield, we'd love to have those conversations. Thank you.
Councillor Scullion.
Thank you, Mayor. Brownfield first, Greenbelt last is the principle in Calderdale. But we're really sorry that for this round, the government have not changed the criteria. It's the same as it was last time. And I think in West Yorkshire, we all know that we've got towns as well as cities, and that means smaller sites. And I really, the work that the team have done, I absolutely endorse the praise that has already been mentioned at this committee, that actually really try to think about where we can put together a number of sites and make the case. And as Melanie says, where land values are low, where you're in a semi-rural area, where you're towns rather than cities, it's been a really hard job and the team have done really well. But we must keep pushing the government on this question of the criteria.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson.
Thanks, Mayor. Yeah, normally I imagine that this committee will be doing backflips, so we're getting an extra £23 million out of government. So let's try and see some of the positives, and well done on a lobbying job to get extra money, because it is a brownfield first policy that we should be going for. I just wanted to ask Melanie, in trying to bring and accelerate some of these schemes to come forward, how are we working with other WICA funded schemes? So our skills training, for example, to make sure that there are skilled employees who are going to be on site, we're giving people job opportunities, how we're working with SMEs to make sure that they can be involved in that support, and just try and utilise as much funding as possible to get this through for 2025.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. We are working with all the developers and registered providers on social value in relation to these schemes as well. So we are looking at apprenticeship numbers. We are looking at joining up with training providers. So we are doing that, but we can look again at whether there are other opportunities with the funding that we have through the combined authority on those schemes.
And it may be that Mark could have a further conversation about SMEs, whether they are part of this process and this thinking. Happy to approve? Lovely, thank you very much. And it certainly feels, you know, we're able to deliver for the people of West Yorkshire when we have this a number of approvals around the table today. So thank you very much, Melanie, for leading the way. Moving on to the next item, governance, which is representation on outside bodies. This report seeks a recommendation to appoint reps to the Transport for the North Scrutiny Committee and Consortium of East Coast Mainline Authorities. And Caroline, if you wouldn't mind talking us through.
Thank you, Chair. I think the report is self-explanatory. It would have been brought to the September meeting if we'd held that meeting. It is proposing the names for those remaining positions on TFN now that we've got the confirmation on the split of duties between the two deputy chairs. So members, I doubt there are any questions on this, but the recommendations are there at 10.1 and 10.2 for you. Thank you.
Thank you. We're all happy to approve. Brilliant, thank you. Okie doke, that leads us to the end of the public content of this meeting. So what I'm going to do now is request, if the public, I'd like to say thank you for coming and for joining us. I do welcome the scrutiny, and thank you very much. And we will now end the live stream and go into discussion on the appendix. We will get to lunch eventually, everyone. Thank you and welcome back. And now we're going to the item 6 on the agenda, which is UK SPF. And Alan, if you'd like to talk us through that.
Thank you very much, Mayor. The paper sets out a comprehensive update on progress on implementing the UK Shared Prosperity Fund. The Combined Authority has previously approved our local investment plan, which is the document the government has required us to submit to them in order for them to release the funding. That has not yet been approved. So the approvals that we're seeking today are pending that approval. We don't currently have a timescale for when that will be formally set out. Since the last meeting, we've also had just over £2.5 million added to the UK Shared Prosperity Fund for a rural prosperity fund, which, whilst welcome, clearly we need to work through how that's going to be used to support businesses within rural areas, and we're working with the local partnership group and rural stakeholders and local authorities across the area to put together a local investment plan that needs to be submitted to government by the end of November. In terms of the way that the UK Shared Prosperity Fund is proposed to be spent, important that it aligns with the West Yorkshire investment strategy and investment priorities and with local authority inclusive growth programmes. And so the proposals set out within the paper do that. In terms of the formal approvals that we're seeking through this paper, apart from noting the progress so far, firstly, authorising the Chief Executive to finalise and submit the local investment plan in consultation with Combined Authority members by the end of November. Secondly, to approve the business justification case for the £30 million local element of UK SPF, and the Combined Authority has already given its approval for that. Thirdly, to note in principle support for the other programmes within the local investment plan. So this is flood innovation, a women and girls programme, business support, which is being developed in conjunction with both the local partnership group and the Business Economy and Innovation Committee. Further, to approve a series of delegations relating to Multiply, which is the adult numeracy programme, so that this aligns with the adult education budget. And finally, to note an approval from the Combined Authority to delegate any particular detailed approvals relating to UK SPF implementation and delivery to the Finance, Resources and Corporate Committee following advice from the local partnership group. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you so much. Any comments? Would you like to come in, Ben?
Thank you, Chair. Just two very quick comments from me. The first is, my understanding, Alan, is just because there is a specific rural fund, shouldn't be taken to mean that the other elements of SPF can't be used for companies and people in rural areas. The rural thing is additional. The other parts of SPF are not excluding rural areas, is my understanding. So that's the first point. The second point is, I think the conversation that's been had about what level of detail is in these papers comes from the balance we're trying to strike between minimising the amount of kind of bureaucracy and paperwork, while at the same time having the accountabilities in the right place. And clearly, with this being a new programme, we're still trying to find the right balance. So we can take offline whether there is a better way to do this, but certainly I think what you're seeing is the bulk of the decision making about the devolved funds is rightly, as Councillor Scullion has said, happening in the local authority areas, and the overview is here.
Thank you so much. And can I put on record my thanks to Mark for chairing that committee? It can't be easy at speed with many pages to go through. So thank you very much. And all the committee actually were giving their time to do this. So firstly, can we note progress? Good, thank you. And also, can we confirm authorisation for the Chief Executive to finalise and submit the local investment plan addendum for the Rural Fund to Government on behalf of the CA, obviously in consultation with myself and district leaders? Thank you so much. And can we note and confirm approval of the recommendations from West Yorkshire UK SPF Local Partnership Group? Thank you. And can we confirm delegation from the Combined Authority to the Finance, Resources and Corporate Committee for approvals required in relation to the UK SPF implementation and delivery of the local investment plan, following advice provided by West Yorkshire UK SPF Local Partnership Group? Thank you. And can we confirm our approval for the adoption of the revised AEB and multiply table of delegations? Thank you. And are there any final approvals I need to make?
Yes.
So moving to item 9 in your pack, are we happy to approve the, one second? Thank you. So the item 9 is the recommendations, is the hyperlocal programme scheme that is proceeds through decision point 2 to 4. Okay, lovely. And approval to the CA's contribution of 31,227,000 UK SPF is given. Thank you. And the combined authority enters into funding agreements with the 5 West Yorkshire local authorities to the following amounts, and you will have that in your pack. We're all happy to approve that. Thank you all so much. And thank you, Caroline, for always being a great colleague and getting me out of trouble. That's brilliant. So moving on to the final item, which is minutes for information. Thank you, everybody, for coming today. And can I remind members, the next meeting is the 8th of December. And can I thank you all for your hard work getting these projects over the line for the people of West Yorkshire. So thank you all and see you next time. Thank you, Ian.